There is a sense of demographic panic that's taking place as the younger generations are more and more non-white. And let's just be frank, illegal immigration, quote unquote, unlawful migration is a symbol for demographic panic. And that is what Donald Trump is stoking.
Well, I make that same mistake myself tonight, looking at the American flags and saying the Americans, what a terrible mistake. I apologize for that to everybody. I mean it.
But it isn't. As I told you, they have mandarins in the audience. They have Hispanics
I
in
didn't
the
see
audience.
all those,
mandarins?
It's exactly
Asian
the
Americans.
opposite of demographic panic. It has
it's
nothing
called
to
Asian
do
Americans,
with,
Ann. Asian Americans, not mandarins.
It has nothing to do with demographics. It
but
has
your throwback
to do
language, it's not 1913. They're called Asian Americans,
anyway,
not mandarins.
I was saying. It has nothing to do with demographics. It has to do with whether you are here legally or illegally, whether you consider yourself an American, whether the laws on the books are going to be enforced. We are having an invasion of people
if you discuss,
across the southern border.
If your default in
now.
discussing Asian Americans is to call people mandarins,
anyway,
we're not bringing back arcane language here, Ann. Let's just talk about people as Americans. Asian Americans. That's the term.
No, you're not going to police my language. They are mandarins. It is written in Mandarin.
I think somebody just said, no, I agree with, which is if you consider yourself American. Book, in Trump We Trust. There it is. And Coulter points out Trump's success is due to the fact that, quote, he's beholden to no one except the millions of ordinary Americans showing up at his speeches, following him on Twitter. But since winning the nomination, Trump's trailed Hillary Clinton in the polls. A Real Clear Politics average has Clinton behind, or ahead rather, by a little over 5 points right now. So with 77 days to go to Election Day, how does Trump turn it around? From where I'm joined by conservative columnist and author of In Trump We Trust, Ann Coulter. So, Ann, the reason I find you interesting as a guest at this point, besides your usual provocative manner, is maybe you have a sense of how they got to get his ship right again. This guy was running on 3 great cases. One is people don't like illegal immigration, okay? Number 2, they don't like our jobs going to Mexico and to China. They don't like our hollowing out of our big cities, especially the poor people who live in those big cities in many cases. And they damn as hell don't like these stupid wars. On all 3 points, Trump was hitting them.
Yes.
But lately he keeps getting distracted in these sideline arguments. Now, you can blame the media all you want, but if he's a pro, he's got to be able to direct the conversation. Can he get back to the winning arguments and maybe give Hillary a run for her money at the end?
I think so, and I think what you said is exactly right. It is those 3 issues. I'm starting to worry that he's panicking and talking to the wrong people because he's sounding a little bit more like the candidates he defeated with the talking points about, you know, softening on deporting the ones who are, they've been here a long time and they're law-abiding. You know, that yes, that's true, but how about you just say, no, my policy is consistent. People who are here illegally have no right to be here. We will decide whether they stay or not in our national interest. Yeah, if they're good for the country, we might keep them. But this is going to be an America first immigration policy, trade policy, and war
nationalism.
Policy.
And that's what I've always thought. Do you think he gets it? Now, see the monkey that typed Merry Christmas? He got nationalism. Does he see how it all fits together? Because I don't know if he does. Because sometimes he wanders all over the place.
No, I think look, he's not a politician. People always say they don't want a politician to run, but when he gives these speeches, have you been to one of his speeches?
I watch them every night here. We get pieces of them. We try to go in and out.
To actually be there, they're even more fun.
We can't just let him entertain us here. So we try to go in for the meat and leave the...
No, but they are very, very entertaining speeches. Yeah. And a lot of people come just because they want to be entertained. He's hilariously funny. I mean, people are driving for 5 hours to come hear him. You start listening to him and you're laughing, and then you start thinking, oh, I agree with that.
But every politician gets completely taken with who's at his crowds and thinks that's the country. They all make that mistake.
But that isn't what I'm saying is... that is his style. Right. He's getting a little too distracted by that. But the speeches he's given since the convention, oh, my gosh, the teleprompter speeches are unbelievable. They're fantastic. They're perfect. If he just keeps doing that, that's how he can win.
Well, will he stick to what's on the prompter? Will he stick to the message?
He has been. He's really good at it. And actually, each prompt, well, he goes a little bit off, but not too much. But he doesn't start wandering off and start talking about something that, like I say, was fun. And
let's take a look at this. For over a year now, Trump has insisted that illegal immigrants have got to go. According to the Texas Tribune today, Trump told Sean Hannity in a pre-taped town hall that he was open to softening in laws that deal with illegal immigrants. He said, quote, there certainly can be a softening because we're not looking to hurt people. It comes after an interview with Bill O'Reilly last night in which Trump said he would mimic President Obama's policies. Take a listen.
We're going to obey the existing laws. Now, the existing laws are very strong. The existing laws, the first thing we're going to do if and when I win, is we're going to get rid of all of the bad ones. As far as everybody else, we're going to go through the process. What people don't know is that Obama got tremendous numbers of people out of the country. Bush, the same thing. Lots of people were brought out of the country with the existing laws. Well, I'm going to do the same thing.
What's Trump saying to the American people right now about immigration? What did all that up to? How's it different than Obama?
How's it different from all the candidates he just beat? I go through. That's one of the 5 talking points every politician says. He's going to deport the felons. Well, it's very different from the actual policy, but they all say that, and it just sounds very consultant to me. This could be the shortest book tour ever if he's really softening his position on immigration, but I don't think he is. Let
me ask you a question about illegal immigration. I think, we don't do it anymore, but NBC News would always show those pictures from down in Texas or Arizona, somewhere on the border of the Canadian-Mexican border, and they would show people, desperate people, racing across when the lights were off, and they would see them coming in, they'd see them running across the road to try to get a ride in a truck somewhere or something. How do you stop that? How do you stop that? Because what that is are men mostly racing across the border to try to get a job in the United States, which they know is going to be there somewhere. Somebody in Chicago in a restaurant or somewhere say, I got a job for you if you can get up here. How do you stop the illegal hiring? Because he never mentions that. Trump never mentions it.
No, I wish he would.
Isn't that the heart of it?
That's what I wish you were talking about now. And plus, H-1B visas, plus people losing their jobs, plus Kate Steinle again. I mean, why? There are only so many things you can talk about. Why are we talking about softening the lies of lawbreakers? I think this is a mistake. It sounds like it's coming from consultants.
Has he lost his confidence?
I don't think so. But to answer your last question,
you're saying 2 things. You think he may have softened up here on what got him this far?
No, I think this is a mistake. I've thought he's made other mistakes, and I've given him constructive criticism when I think he makes a mistake. I think this is a mistake. But I want to answer your last question.
Does he take your criticism?
I haven't had a lot, but yeah. No, he does listen to people. And I'm not advising him or anything, but I did write this magnificent book. But to answer your last question...
You still trust him?
This isn't the same. Yes, this is not the same as either Hillary or Obama. To compare it to what they're doing is preposterous. I don't know why he just said that. It's crazy. They are fighting the deportations of rapists. They're fighting the deportations of murderers. Hillary says she's going to open the border. She's going to amnesty everyone. She's going to quadruple the number of Muslim refugees. So to say there's no difference, I think, is crazy. I just don't understand why he's going to these really tired talking points that both Democrat and Republican politicians use. No, that isn't what's winning.
I know why.
You say
I would guess why.
I think it's panicking.
He looked into the abyss about a week or two ago.
That's right. I think
he dumped his people and he got nervous. He said, I better try something different. Along comes Kellyanne Conway, who's a traditional pollster.
Well, I don't know who's giving him the advice, but this is definitely consultant-led advice, and it's not good advice. What he should keep doing is what he's been doing. You're right. His 3 issues are obviously very appealing.
I think they work for his audience. I don't know if it works for the whole country.
Of course it does, and it works for blacks and Hispanics. They want jobs, too.
Well, as a previous guest just said, he should be going out talking about trade. Richard Fowler says to talk about big cities where a lot of poor people.
His issues are incredibly popular, and no other politician
there were jobs.
Yeah.
And they were real jobs.
But first, for more than a year on this show, we've discussed our country's immigration policies. Pretty much every night we've asked supporters of open borders, how can you justify this? Do American citizens benefit from these policies or not? We still don't know. Finally, from MSNBC comes an answer. On her weekend show this Saturday, anchor Joy Reid interviewed a genealogist who had done historical research on my family. Apparently, one of my ancestors came to this country in 1860 from Switzerland. I didn't even know that until Reid's show aired because I have zero interest in the subject. That was more than 150 years ago. It is irrelevant to the decisions that I make as a father or a citizen or an employee of Fox News. It tells us precisely nothing about our modern immigration policy. America's economy has changed quite a bit since the Civil War. Yet, according to MSNBC, this fact is a conversation ender. A single 19th century Swiss relative means you are now required to support green cards for everyone who jumps the borders or overstays a visa in 2018. Boom! Case closed! As Reid's guest put it, people in genealogical glass houses shouldn't throw stones, meaning me. Well, as is so often the case, it's hard to know exactly whether this was meant as a legitimate point of debate or whether it was part of an elaborate parody. Monty Python does DACA. But there's absolutely no doubt about the sincerity of what came next. Here's Joy Reid's response. She wasn't joking at all. Watch.
Tucker's been one of the most sort of aggressive at putting forward what a lot of people have seen as a pretty blatantly white nationalist view of what immigration should be like.
So Joy Reid is accusing us of racism. Let's pause for a moment and savor the irony of that. Reid's entire public career has been built on race baiting. Try to watch her show for 20 minutes and see for yourself. This is the woman who urged the Democratic Party to give up on white voters who voted for Obama and then Trump, saying their votes weren't worth fighting for. That was last August. In October, she suggested that White House Chief of Staff John Kelly was somehow a bigot because he grew up around Irish Catholics. After House Majority Whip Steve Scalise was shot and nearly killed by a progressive activist last summer, Reid openly wondered if we should hope for his recovery. Watch.
It's a delicate thing because, obviously everybody is wishing the congressman well and hoping that he recovers. But Steve Scalise has a history that we've all been forced to sort of ignore on race. He did come to leadership after some controversy over attending a white nationalist event, which he says he didn't know what it was. He also co-sponsored a bill to amend the Constitution to define marriages between a man and a woman. Because he is in jeopardy and everyone is pulling for him, are we required in a moral sense to put that aside at the moment?
So when Joy Reid accuses you of harboring racist thoughts, trust me, it's projection. But it's also a political tactic. Reid can't explain why this country so badly needs to import millions of additional poor people. Nobody on the left can explain that because there's no real answer. So they attempt to short-circuit the conversation with slurs. That's a shame. Immigration matters. It determines who lives in this country, who chooses our government, who shapes our future. It's hard to think of a public policy topic more central to everything. We've tried our best to discuss immigration reasonably and with civility. Most of the time we succeed, not all, but we try. We tried to make a rational case for what we think ought to be done. We'd like immigration policies that favor the American middle class over foreign countries, corporate elites, and lobbyists. We think that laws passed by our Congress ought to be respected and enforced, not mocked and ignored by our own leaders. We believe that America is an actual place, not just an abstract idea. It's a distinct country with its own history, language, tradition, values. Change, when it comes, ought to be thoughtful and incremental. We owe that to the people who already live here, people of all colors and backgrounds. We're suspicious of efforts to remake our society wholesale, especially just so a small group of tastemakers can feel virtuous or have cheaper nannies. Any change is hard. Demographic change especially is hard. Let's stop lying about that. It always hurts the weak and economically vulnerable first. Someone ought to be thinking about their interests, too. Those are our views. And they're not extreme, and we know that because we've seen the polling on the subject. A huge number of Americans agree with what we just said. If you don't believe it, look up the views of African-American voters on illegal immigration. They are not with Joy Reid, to put it mildly. They know what the cost has been. Those who disagree with any of this are always welcome here. This is the only show on television that books guests every night who have a different view. We look hard for the smartest and most articulate people we can find. You can listen to both sides on this show and you can make up your own mind. The organized left hates that. They no longer believe in debate. They believe in power, accumulating it, and most of all, in wielding it. Anyone who gets in their way gets shouted down, in this case, as a racist. That doesn't work anymore. What was once a devastating attack on a person's character is now just background noise. When everything is racist, from ice cream trucks to Dr. Seuss, nothing is. The term has been devalued by reckless overuse. And that's a shame because it still applies. There's still plenty of racism in America, maybe more now possibly than in generations. Americans are attacked openly for their race every day in print, on television, at public gatherings. People are punished for their race in hiring, in college admissions, in government and private contracting. The left supports all of this. It's central to their worldview. It's key to their political strategy, but it's totally wrong, and we plan to keep saying that. We still believe in what used to be the central premise of American liberalism. People ought to be judged on what they do, not on how they look or who their parents were or what their ancestors did. We don't believe in collective punishment or reward. We believe in the individual, and because we do, we think our immigration policy ought to be driven by what each individual can add to America. Nobody has the right to be admitted by lottery or because they happen to be related to someone who's already here or because they snuck in and it's too politically difficult to make them leave. That's what we think. Disagree with it? You are always welcome on